Why I really like franchises, I would say, is one is you're not paying a multiple of earnings. You're not buying that remodeled house that's already like selling for top dollar. You're building something that's like got the foundation. Now you're going to do the rest of the framing and build that house so you can build in equity. Usually it's less startup costs, less overhead. You're not taking on disgruntled employees. You're not stressed out because you went a little bit bigger and bought this $2 million thing and you have $1.8 million in SBA loans. You might have a $200,000 SBA loan. So I think there's definitely variables. You know, it's just as easy to buy a big business as it is small business, but it just also goes to like, what lifestyle do you really want? What's your lifestyle look like? And I think I go back to that in franchising is you have more choice to start any type of franchise because there's a couple thousand franchises that might be available, at least a couple hundred in your market that are available today. And you're not spending 2 or 3 years trying to find that perfect unicorn business because there's a lot of people that will never find that business.
All right, I'm back again with Beau. How's it going, Beau?
It's going really good.
I have a few questions for you today about business acquisition versus franchise startup. So you ready?
I'm ready.
All right. What are the biggest differences between buying a business and starting a franchise?
You know, everybody wants a business because they think, hey, I'm going to buy this business that's already cash flowing, which sometimes is very true. And generally, if it does have the cash flow and we can get the tax returns to the business, we can finance 90% with an SBA loan. We can get the seller to carry back a little bit of it as well. So yeah, sometimes they're really awesome deals, right? And you can go in and essentially with one swoop, you can move into a business and get salary. They have, you know, seller's discretionary earnings, they call it. I buy this business for $2 million. I put down $200,000. I get, you know, I got the tax returns, the financials. I move into this cash flow. So I think I understand the appeal of a business acquisition and people are really going hard for that. But also I think, you know, that could have some downside, like you move into a business and you lose customer base anytime there's an ownership change. Or maybe you get into a business and like you didn't realize they had a saturation of like 1 or 2 customers that was buying the majority of the material from your store or your manufacturing company. And then they leave when the owner leaves. Then all of a sudden you lose 50% or 60% of your business. So I think there's a lot of risk. I read an article that on average you see a 2 to 7% decline in revenue on a transfer of business ownership. Now most of them get it back, but I do think there's some definitely pros and cons. And I don't rule out business acquisition versus franchise. Sometimes a business acquisition is better and it's easier to finance and there's a lot of variables. So I don't have a particular favorite. You can do business acquisition on franchises as well. We call them resales. Why I really like franchises, I would say, is one is you're not paying a multiple of earnings. You're not buying that remodeled house that's already like selling for top dollar. You're building something that's like got the foundation. Now you're going to do the rest of the framing and build that house so you can build in equity. Usually it's less startup costs, less overhead. You're not taking on disgruntled employees. You're not stressed out because you went a little bit bigger and bought this $2 million thing and you have $1.8 million in SBA loans. You might have a $200,000 SBA loan. So I think there's definitely variables. And honestly, because we can match you with using our business assessment, we give you more options. Like you might spend 2 or 3 years looking for a business acquisition. I just talked to a guy who spent the last 2 years looking to do a business acquisition. And his wife doesn't want him to buy something for $2 million, $5 million. So say, hey, let's get our feet wet with a franchise. It's a good way to get your wife supportive. You know, she doesn't want it to guarantee a $3 million loan, but can we get her to guarantee a $100,000 loan? I think it's a little bit easier to sell. Plus, he can hone his skill as a corporate guy now as a business ownership with less risk. So I'm not saying one's better or the other, but I think we have to look at all these differences.
All right. So I think you kind of alluded to this, but what kind of person is best suited for each path? Like, it sounds to me like the guy with a higher net worth and higher savings has 2 options, you know, business acquisition and franchise, whereas somebody with a lot less money, maybe a franchise is the best way to go. But is there anything more to that?
I mean, there's like searchers that's what they do. They go to like a really good business school and they go through their programs because the whole idea of it when they graduate this is they go out and they spend a year or two finding a business to acquire, and then there's search funds that back them. And these are guys and girls that are like really highly educated, like they go to like Wharton Business School and like so like they have a different brain than the average person. Where I think it doesn't mean they're going to be ultimately successful, but
Mhm.
they're out there with these search funds and they're coming out of these programs and they're buying $5-10 million businesses with the backing of these search funds. But I don't think the average person is going to have the skill set, and I don't even know that those search fund people, because they haven't really actually done the business, how successful they'll ultimately be. I don't know if one's right or wrong for anybody. I think it's really what you feel comfortable with. I mean, there are people that come out of this, and do like they come out and just like some average Joe goes in and they go from a $60,000 a year salary. They spend time finding a business and then they get SBA financing. They bring an investor in to come in with some of the down payment and they buy a $5 million business that has $400,000 or $500,000 of cash flow every year coming off. So it's very possible to do all of this stuff, but I don't think there's not a roadmap because just you hear all these wins, but you also got to hear about the losses too, because it doesn't mean like when you come into this business, what happens if the industry dies out? AI wipes it out for whatever reason. So I do think franchising makes a lot of sense in the in B2B home service industry. Like I don't see a lot of those being wiped out with AI, but I do think AI can help because you can get lead generation and stuff.
I think you touched a little bit on what are the financing options for both. You still consider SBA to be the best for both situations?
Yes, SBA,
Yeah.
SBA all the way.
Which has a higher success rate, startup, franchise, or acquisition?
I would probably say I don't know for a fact, but I would probably say acquisition because in general, you're probably even if it's a franchise doesn't mean it's a good franchise. There's a lot of crap franchises, just like there's a lot of crap businesses to buy. I would probably
Yeah.
say that a business acquisition has a higher success rate, all in all, because it's been running for 10 or 15 years or 5 years.
But provided that you pay the right price for it too, right?
Right.
You can overpay and not know it.
You're exactly right. I think a lot of people right now are overpaying. Now
Yeah.
the business still has to value out because anything over 250 they do a business valuation, which is like a business appraisal. But everything gets saturated, right? Like because everybody now is transitioning to home service and this and that. You always got to keep your radar open. So I'm looking for something that's unique and it is needed. Like that, it's going to be hard to maybe it's like what is the different factor? Like I mean, but everybody needs their lawn mowed. Everybody needs their filters changed. The difference is right. Like everybody needs their new HVAC. Everybody needs an oil change on their car. So what are those businesses and how are you different and what does your competition look like? And just remember, even if it's a high top line revenue business, one tweak in the market on a business acquisition can blow you out of the water. I personally would say, it's just as easy to buy a big business as it is small business, but it just also goes to like, what lifestyle do you really want? What's your lifestyle look like? And I think I go back to that in franchising is you have more choice to start any type of franchise because there's a couple thousand franchises that might be available, at least a couple hundred in your market that are available today. And you're not spending 2 or 3 years trying to find that perfect unicorn business because there's a lot of people that will never find that business.
Last question is, can you share a client example who faced this decision, business acquisition or franchise, and what they chose?
I mean, I have so many people calling me because I do both things, SBA and franchise. I have so many people that call me and say, look, I was like looking for a business acquisition for a year or two. And you had brought up when they had called me on financing, you had brought up maybe I should look at a franchise, and like a year, 2 years later, they're freaking frustrated. And they're like, yeah, let's look at a franchise now. Let's go through your process. That happens like every week, at least once a week. Somebody does that. So that's why I say, look, I understand why you want to buy a existing business. I completely understand. We've already talked about that. Like you could move into cash flow potentially quicker and like less risk. But if you're still stuck in your job 2 or 3 years later, you're kind of, you could have had your franchise ramped up in 6 or 9 months and been going. And the thing about franchising, because there's systems, you can scale to a lot of different franchise systems. You don't have to be stuck in one business. And that's what they're geared for, to own multiple territories, to own multiple brands. So
Yeah, and generally speaking, as time goes on, prices of business acquisitions tend to go up unless it's in a dying industry, in which case you don't want to buy the thing anyway. So 2 years ago, you could have bought it for less, but you wasted all that time. The franchise, yeah, it probably goes up in price too, but not by nearly as much. So it's probably just a better deal overall for like 90% of the people, right?
I think so. What I tell everybody, keep looking for business acquisitions, go through my process. And there's 2 outcomes when you go through my process. One, one is we might find you a franchise resale in your market. So you are doing a business acquisition essentially. But even if we didn't find that and you just went through, at the end of it, there's 2 outcomes. One is that we find you a business that you want to invest in, a franchise. Or 2, you say, hey, I learned a lot about business models, but I didn't find anything. That's fine. That's what we do. We understand that, there's going to be X amount of people that go through the process that want to decide, hey, this business model really one is I'm passionate about the business. I understand it. I like it. And it's got great potential and I can ramp up. So like, why wouldn't you at least look? It's not going to hurt you.
Hi guys, Beau Eckstein here, and I'm with baby Beau. Baby Beau is just a little over 4 months. He's my first child, my wife and I. So if you want to create legacy for your family, I highly suggest you go to our Business Ownership Summit. You can find all the events we're doing. Primarily, they're all free. You can go to beaueckstein.com/events. And I hope to see you at one of our events where we teach business ownership, how to leverage SBA financing, tax strategies. I'm not a CPA and an attorney, but we bring CPAs on. You're going to learn why everyone should own a small business. So I hope you attend. Go to beaueckstein.com/events. I'll see you at the next one.
Hey guys, Beau Eckstein here. If you enjoyed what you saw, please subscribe to this channel. We talk all things financing. I've been in the lending industry for over 20 years, and I'm happy to answer your questions and provide great content.